We've all felt it, haven't we? That subtle tightening in the chest, maybe, or, the restless mind that just won't quiet down. Sometimes it's that sudden, just inexplicable wave of worry that seems to arrive without any invitation at all. It's that kind of pervasive sense of unease, maybe a nagging feeling that something isn't quite right, even when, on the surface, everything seems perfectly okay. Today, we're taking a deep dive into that incredibly common, yet often quite isolating experience. We're talking about understanding, navigating, and maybe ultimately finding some peace with anxiety in our daily lives. Okay, let's unpack this.
Indeed. And what becomes really clear when we look at individual stories, these personal narratives, is how just one person's journey can light up these universal human challenges. And it offers not just empathy, which is important, but also truly tangible paths forward, ways to manage what often feels like this invisible, almost overwhelming burden.
Exactly. And our mission for this deep dive, it's rooted in a really intimate and I think quite powerful narrative. It's called Sophie's Journey, Living with Anxiety and Finding Peace. Now, this isn't like a clinical textbook or some dry academic study, not at all. This is a firsthand account. It's a window, really, into one person's lived experience with anxiety. It chronicles her proactive steps, the shifts she cultivated to find her own version of peace. So our aim here is to pull out the most practical tools, the deepest insights, and maybe the actionable strategies that come out of Sophie's story. We really want to help you, our listener, maybe recognize bits of your own journey or discover some new approaches, or maybe just gain a more nuanced understanding of what it means to live with and perhaps move beyond anxiety.
And if we connect Sophie's initial state, where she starts, to the broader human experience, we see something quite widespread. It's this persistent sense of apprehension that often exists almost independently of external stability or any clear threats, which brings up a crucial question right from the very beginning. When anxiety feels so internal, so sort of amorphous, how do we even begin to grapple with it? What's the first step in addressing something that doesn't seem to have a concrete origin?
That's exactly where Sophie's story starts to resonate so deeply, I think. Let's just paint a picture of her world for a moment. We meet Sophie. She's a young woman, just 25 years old. She's navigating life in a small apartment right here in the middle of, vibrant, bustling New York City. Her job. She works in a bookstore. A setting that, many might picture as a kind of tranquil sanctuary, right? A quiet escape from all the city noise. And on the surface, her daily routine seems utterly unremarkable. Pretty standard. She gets up promptly at 7 a.m., looks like a picture of routine efficiency, makes her bed, brushes her teeth, hydrates with a glass of water. It's like the perfect start to a calm, organized day. But, and this is key, the source material reveals this critical contrast, this huge gap between her external calm and her internal reality. It says deep inside she feels nervous. She feels something bad will happen, but she does not know why.
That phrase, "she does not know why," that's arguably one of the most poignant and honestly relatable lines in the whole narrative. It speaks directly to the insidious nature of what we often call generalized anxiety. It's a state of unease that isn't really tied to a specific, identifiable external threat. Unlike fear, which is usually a rational response to some present danger, anxiety often shows up as this, formless apprehension, a sense of impending doom but without a clear cause. And it's precisely this internal, sort of unidentifiable source of discomfort that makes it so profoundly challenging to confront. Because, how do you logically argue with or escape from something you can't quite put your finger on?
Right. And crucially, this isn't just a fleeting moment of worry for Sophie. It's not like it comes and goes quickly. The narrative really underscores the pervasive, almost relentless nature of her anxiety. It describes it with this striking personification, saying, it comes without knocking. It comes without reason. It makes her heart beat fast. It makes her hands shake. It makes her feel afraid, even when nothing is wrong. Just think about that for a moment, you, our listener. Does that resonate with you, with your own experience perhaps? That feeling of unease that just arrives, uninvited, without a clear, logical catalyst. That sort of pervasive sense of a threat lurking just beyond your perception, even when your external world seems stable. It's like this silent alarm bell that just rings and rings, even when there's no visible fire anywhere.
It's a feeling that countless people recognize, absolutely. Whether they formally label it anxiety or just experience it as this underlying sense of dread or maybe a constant tension. Sophie's initial state, feeling worried and tense despite having a steady job, good friends, food, safety, it vividly illustrates that often bewildering disconnect. the gap between external circumstances and internal emotional experience. For many, that is the definition of anxiety, a heightened state of alert without a clear reason for the alarm. And this foundational point is so vital because it highlights that anxiety often isn't a rational response to current objective danger. It's more like an internal alarm system that seems perpetually stuck in the on position. Understanding that distinction and recognizing that anxiety doesn't always need an external trigger to feel valid, that's often the critical first step for so many people. People embarking on a journey to understand and navigate their own mental landscape. It's that initial acceptance, really. I feel this way even if I don't know why.
Which brings us perfectly to Sophie's proactive journey and this really pivotal moment of internal shift. It happens on just an ordinary day. She's simply sitting on her bed, totally common, everyday setting. But Sophie reaches this profound turning point. Her mind, though, is anything but ordinary in that moment. She closes her eyes, consciously takes a deep breath, and asks herself with real self-inquiry, why do I feel like this? I have a job, I have friends, I have food, I am safe. But still, she thinks, I feel worried, I feel tense. It's a moment of really piercing clarity, isn't it? She's taking this honest inventory of her life, acknowledging all the external positives, and yet she's confronting this persistent internal struggle that just seems to defy logic. The self-dialogue, it's a critical act of self-awareness.
hmm And this internal monologue, it isn't just a passing thought. It's really the genesis of her agency. It shows that while awareness, recognizing there's a problem is absolutely essential as a first step, real transformation only begins when that awareness sparks action. She's not just enduring the feeling anymore. She's actively questioning it, searching for a reason, even if there isn't a clear one. And in that honest inquiry, she arrives at this crucial realization. It's the shift from being like a passive recipient of her emotions to becoming an active investigator of her own inner world.
And that realization, that's where her journey truly takes flight. This source tells us. She knows that anxiety is a part of her life, but she also knows that she can learn how to live with it. So she starts her journey to fight anxiety. And here's where it gets really interesting for us, I think. Because Sophie doesn't just sit with this pervasive feeling, this unease. She makes a conscious, deliberate choice. She decides to embark on a transformative journey. It's such a powerful act of reclaiming control. Not necessarily control over the anxiety itself, like making it vanish, but crucially, control over her response to it. That's the key. And this isn't just a one-time decision, it's a profound commitment to self-healing, a daily practice. The narrative reinforces this so beautifully by emphasizing every step she takes, every breath she takes as part of her healing, which highlights that this isn't about finding some quick fix, It's more about engaging in this continuous active partnership with her inner world, day by day, moment by moment.
Yes, that initial resolve, it's not just significant, it's really the foundational cornerstone of any self-directed path towards well-being. Any path. It marks that moment of agency, shifting her from feeling like a victim of her circumstances and internal states to becoming an active participant in her own well-being. This mindset shift from passive experience to active engagement with one's feelings, that is the prerequisite for any meaningful, sustainable change. It just is. It embodies the understanding that while anxiety might be present in her life, it doesn't have to define her entire existence. It doesn't have to dictate her capacity for joy and peace. This perspective acknowledges that healing is, well, it's an ongoing process. It's a journey with many small steps, not some single destination you arrive at overnight. It inherently implies consistent effort, patience, and a deep acceptance of the iterative nature of self-care. It's like a declaration. I'm willing to engage with my anxiety rather than just letting it consume me.
Okay, so with that unwavering resolve now in place, Sophie began this deliberate process, cultivating inner calm. And she started with what might seem like the simplest tools, but they are profoundly effective: deep breathing and journaling. The first, and maybe the most immediate practice she integrated, was conscious deep breathing. And this wasn't just a casual sigh like we might do. It evolved into a fundamental ritual she wove into her morning routine. Every single day before she even stepped out the door or faced the demands of her work at the bookstore, she'd find a comfortable chair, place her hands calmly on her knees. She'd close her eyes and engage in this methodical breathing exercise, slowly inhaling through her nose, holding her breath for a count of 5 seconds, and then slowly, deliberately exhaling through her mouth. She'd repeat this 5 times, a small, yes, but really powerful anchor for her day.
hmm And what's truly illuminating about Sophie's experience with deep breathing is the immediate and quite profound physiological response it triggers. See, when we engage in slow diaphragmatic Breathing deep into the belly, we directly activate the parasympathetic nervous system. That's often called our body's rest and digest system. And this system acts as a direct counterpoint, a sort of brake, to the sympathetic nervous system. That's the one responsible for the fight or flight response that anxiety kicks into high gear. So by signaling safety to the brain through controlled breathing, Sophie's body actually begins to de-escalate the alarm. It helps lower her heart rate, reduce muscle tension, even regulate blood pressure. It's a direct biochemical intervention. It kind of bypasses the anxious thoughts and offers immediate, tangible relief. It's not just about feeling calm, it's about physically shifting the body's internal state.
And she didn't just breathe mindlessly either. She paired this vital physiological practice with conscious, affirming self-talk. As she breathed, she would quietly repeat to herself, I am safe. I am calm. I am strong. The source material explicitly states these simple words make her feel better. And breathing helps her body relax. It helps her mind slow down. So for us, thinking about our listeners, what does this combination truly signify? Why is something as seemingly straightforward as controlled breathing, coupled with these simple affirmations, such a powerful and accessible tool for managing anxiety?
Well, the affirmations, when you pair them with that physiological shift from the deep breathing, they create this powerful synergistic effect. It's like 1 + 1 = 3. Our brains are remarkably adaptable, right? They're constantly forming and strengthening neural pathways based on our repetitive thoughts and experiences. Neuroplasticity. So, if we habitually ruminate on worry or fear, those pathways become really deeply ingrained, making anxious responses more automatic, almost reflexive. But by intentionally introducing positive and calming statements like, I am safe or I am strong, Sophie is actively building new, more resilient neural pathways. And this isn't just metaphorical rewiring, it's the literal strengthening of connections between neurons that support states of calm and self-efficacy. So this deliberate linguistic framing, combined with the body's signal of safety from the breathing, it helps retrain the mind. It provides that immediate relief by grounding her in the present, but it also contributes to long-term neural restructuring, building a more robust internal landscape, really, for facing future challenges.
Okay, so moving beyond that immediate, very tactile experience of breathing, Sophie also began this crucial practice of externalizing her thoughts, getting them out. She did this through the power of journaling. This became her consistent nightly ritual, a dedicated time to just offload the day's mental clutter. Every evening, she'd pick up her notebook and simply write. And there was no filtering, apparently, no self-censorship. She just poured out everything she felt, no matter how raw or uncomfortable those emotions were. Whether she was feeling scared or angry or just utterly exhausted, she transcribed it. Things like, I am scared, I am angry, I am tired.
And that raises a really important question for anyone grappling with an overactive mind, which is so common with anxiety. Why is the act of externalizing thoughts onto paper so profoundly effective? Well, it facilitates something psychologists call metacognition, basically, the process of thinking about your own thinking. See, when thoughts remain solely within the confines of the mind, they can swirl, amplify, become overwhelming. They often feel much more potent and less controllable. By committing them to paper, Sophie creates this tangible external representation of her internal state. And this transformation from abstract thought to concrete words on a page, it allows for this crucial psychological distance.
It's remarkably like giving your busy, cluttered mind a dedicated space to offload, isn't it? Like clearing off a crowded desk, maybe, or decluttering a room that's just accumulated too much stuff. The source describes this therapeutic effect with such clarity. Writing helps her take the thoughts out of her mind and put them on paper. It feels like talking to a friend. It feels like sharing the load. And then, this key insight emerges from the practice. When she reads her words again, she understands her feelings better. That self-discovery part seems incredibly powerful.
Precisely. This active externalization, by creating that distance, allows for objective observation, a more analytical approach to one's emotions. When Sophie rereads her entries, she's no longer fully immersed in the raw, overwhelming feeling. She's stepping back, becoming an observer of it. And this detached perspective allows her to identify patterns, recognize recurring triggers, maybe understand the cyclical nature of some of her anxieties. For example, she might notice, my anxiety consistently spikes on Sunday evenings, signaling that anticipatory dread for the work week. Or maybe that certain interactions consistently lead to feelings of frustration or unease. This goes way beyond just feeling the emotion. It's a form of self-reflection that directly fosters emotional intelligence. It moves her from simply experiencing emotions to understanding what she is feeling, why those feelings might be arising, and how they manifest for her. It's a really profound act of self-discovery, like turning an overwhelming foggy cloud into a more understandable weather report. You can work with a weather report.
Okay, so building seamlessly on these deeply internal practices, Sophie then realized the immense, almost transformative value of external connections, and also finding solace in the wider world around her. The narrative highlights the profound importance of genuine human connections so beautifully. It details her brave decision to actually talk to someone. Initially, the source says Sophie had always been quite shy about speaking up, especially about her inner struggles. There was this pervasive fear that people just wouldn't understand, or worse, maybe that they might judge her. And that's a fear shared by so many people, isn't it? That fear of being misunderstood. Or that internalized shame surrounding difficult emotions, which leads to feeling like your experience is totally unique and therefore incredibly isolating.
hmm And when we connect this to the broader picture of mental health, this initial reluctance to share, it's a significant barrier, often a debilitating one for many people experiencing anxiety, the fear of being misunderstood, the internalized shame, maybe the concern of burdening others. These things can trap individuals in a cycle of really profound isolation. And this isolation, in turn, only makes those feelings of being overwhelmed, alone, and somehow abnormal even worse. It becomes this vicious cycle where the very thing that might help connection is prevented by the condition itself. So breaking that silence, that's a monumental first step, truly.
But one day, a pivotal shift happened. Sophie took this remarkably courageous step and confided in her close friend Lily. With real vulnerability and honesty, Sophie just told her directly, "I feel worried every day. I don't know why. I feel something bad will happen. I can't stop thinking." Plain and simple. And Lily's response was, well, in essence, the turning point for this aspect of her journey. Lily didn't offer complex advice or try to fix her. She simply smiled, the source says, with genuine warmth and said, "I understand. I feel the same sometimes." And then, those magic words. "You are not alone, Sophie." It's truly incredible, isn't it, how just hearing those simple words, "Me too, I understand, you're not alone," how that can be such a profound and immediate relief. It's the breaking of that pervasive sense of isolation, that feeling of finally being seen and validated in your most vulnerable state.
That validation, yes, that empathy, and the shared experience, they instantly normalize feelings that can otherwise feel deeply isolating and, frankly, abnormal. It fundamentally shifts the burden. It goes from being this solitary internal struggle to becoming a shared human experience. This fosters a profound sense of belonging and significantly reduces the perceived abnormality or shame associated with one's emotions. And this isn't just comforting, although it certainly is. It's a powerful psychological buffer against distress. It enables individuals to process difficult emotions in a supportive, validating environment rather than just internalizing them or carrying them completely alone. This act of confiding, it's the critical first step in building a sustainable support system, which is absolutely crucial for long-term emotional well-being. It transforms an abstract internal fear into a shared reality, somehow making it feel more manageable.
That day, Sophie learned a truly profound lesson. Talking to someone is very helpful. She does not have to keep everything inside. She can share, she can cry, she can laugh, she can be herself. And it wasn't about Lily having all the answers or prescribing some solution, not at all. It was simply about Lily listening, truly understanding, and validating Sophie's experience without any judgment. It speaks volumes, I think, about the healing power of just authentic connection.
It speaks directly to that fundamental human need for connection and belonging. It's core to who we are. When we are brave enough to share our vulnerabilities and we're met with acceptance and understanding rather than judgment or dismissiveness, it profoundly reinforces our sense of self-worth. This diminishes the intense shame and stigma that are so often associated with mental health struggles. Furthermore, the mere act of verbalizing fears, giving voice to what has previously been this internal unspoken struggle, that in itself can lessen their power. They move from being these abstract, overwhelming anxieties swirling inside the mind to becoming concrete expressions that can be processed, examined, and addressed, often with the support of another person. It's really the first step in moving from that internal chaos to external communication, which is just a critical pathway to healing.
Okay, so beyond the vital sphere of human connection, Sophie also discovered the deeply soothing and restorative embrace of nature. The narrative paints this really vivid and inviting picture of her Sunday park visit, a deliberate escape from the city's density. She observed the simple, grounding joys around her. Children playing with that uninhibited glee, older people walking slowly, contemplatively, the sun casting dappled light through the green canopy of trees. It's a scene of tranquil normalcy, really, a stark contrast to her often turbulent inner world.
And what's truly compelling here is the multisensory engagement that nature inherently offers. It just does. Unlike the often abstract, ruminative, and internal nature of anxiety, the natural world provides concrete, tangible sensory input. Input that actively pulls us out of our internal thought loops and grounds us firmly in the present moment. I mean, think about it. The sights of leaves rustling, the sounds of birdsong, the smell of damp earth after rain, the feel of a breeze on your skin. These are all direct anchors to the here and now.
Mm.
This process is often referred to as grounding, and it's incredibly effective at disrupting those anxious thought patterns.
And Sophie doesn't just passively observe either. She fully immerses herself in it. The source tells us she actually takes off her shoes and walks on the grass, actively feeling the texture and coolness of the ground beneath her feet. She consciously listens to the intricate symphony of the birds, and she deliberately smells the various fragrances of the flowers. This isn't just being in nature, it's experiencing it with, every fiber of her being. She's present, fully engaged with every sensory detail. There's just something inherently calming and perspective-shifting about stepping outside and consciously tuning in to the natural world, isn't there? Sophie really taps into that primal connection.
Absolutely. This form of natural mindfulness, sometimes called forest bathing or ecotherapy, has profound physiological and psychological effects, and they're well documented. Studies have consistently shown that spending dedicated time in green spaces can significantly lower cortisol levels. Those are the body's primary stress hormones. It can also dramatically reduce rumination, that repetitive, often unproductive thinking about a problem or situation, simply by diverting attention outwards. Furthermore, engaging with nature often fosters this profound sense of interconnectedness. It reminds us of our place within a larger living system. And for an anxious mind, which often feels isolated and overwhelmed, this can be incredibly grounding and expansive. The source states, nature heals her, and this isn't just poetic language. There's a real, tangible, and scientifically supported benefit to consciously engaging with the natural world. It brings peace, it brings joy, not just as a pleasant experience, but actually as a kind of therapeutic intervention.
Sophie's journey also brilliantly highlights the crucial, absolutely foundational role of holistic well-being, specifically through rigorous physical self-care, and then also a fundamental shifting of mindsets towards acceptance, mindfulness, and gratitude. Let's dig into the physical aspects first, because these are often overlooked when we talk about mental health, aren't they? Our source details a very comprehensive and, frankly, disciplined list of daily habits Sophie consciously adopted. She made a deliberate effort to drink enough water throughout the day, ensuring proper hydration. That's basic but important. She committed to eating healthy, nourishing food, actively avoiding processed junk food, which we know can wreak havoc on mood and energy levels. She meticulously prioritized her sleep, consistently going to bed early, and crucially, stopping all phone use well before sleep, avoiding that blue light and mental stimulation. And finally, she integrated consistent movement into her day by taking a walk every single evening.
Yes, this comprehensive approach, it raises an absolutely critical question about the intrinsic mind-body connection. It's a concept often discussed, sure, but maybe not always deeply integrated into how we approach anxiety management. Physical health isn't merely about preventing illness. It profoundly impacts our mental resilience, our capacity to cope with stress and anxiety. Adequate sleep, for instance, is absolutely fundamental, foundational. It's not just about feeling rested. It directly regulates mood, supports crucial cognitive functions like decision-making and emotional processing. It allows the brain to consolidate memories and process emotional information effectively overnight. Conversely, chronic sleep deprivation, which many anxious individuals unfortunately experience, can significantly exacerbate anxiety symptoms. It can impair emotional regulation, even trigger panic attacks sometimes. It's like trying to run complex software on a computer system that hasn't been properly rebooted or maintained.
It sounds almost too basic, doesn't it? Really fundamental stuff. These are the foundational elements of well-being that we often take for granted, I think. Yet, they are frequently the very first things to be compromised or just abandoned when we're feeling overwhelmed or stressed or deeply anxious. You skip meals or you reach for sugary comfort foods. You find yourself doom scrolling on your phone late in the night, totally disrupting your sleep cycle. We've all been there. Sophie's experience powerfully proves just how foundational these seemingly simple habits really are. The source clearly states she moves her body, she feels more energy, she feels more control. And then, a healthy body helps her have a healthy mind. It's a clear cycle, isn't it? Improvements in one area ripple into the other.
Absolutely. It's completely interconnected. Similarly, nutrition plays a direct role in supporting neurotransmitter function. Those are the chemical messengers in our brain that profoundly impact mood, cognition, and anxiety levels. Things like serotonin, dopamine, avoiding junk food, which is often loaded with refined sugars, unhealthy fats, artificial additives that helps prevent those erratic blood sugar spikes and crashes. Those fluctuations can trigger irritability, nervousness, and even heighten anxious sensations. And then there's exercise, like Sophie's consistent evening walks. Physical activity is a natural anxiolytic, meaning it reduces anxiety. It releases endorphins, which have mood-boosting effects. It reduces stress hormones like cortisol, improves sleep quality, and provides a structured, healthy outlet for pent-up energy, tension, or that restless, anxious feeling. It's really about building a robust physiological foundation, creating an internal environment that is inherently less prone to the heightened arousal state of anxiety. Now, it's not a magic bullet on its own, of course, but consistent physical self-care significantly strengthens one's capacity to cope with and mitigate anxiety symptoms. It's like building a stronger, more resilient vehicle for your mind to inhabit and navigate the world in.
And then came the truly profound shift in her perspective, particularly around these core principles: acceptance, mindfulness, and gratitude. And these aren't just abstract buzzwords floating around. For Sophie, they became vital, transformative daily practices. Let's delve into acceptance first. The narrative explicitly tells us that even after diligently implementing all her practices, the breathing, the journaling, talking, nature, self-care anxiety would at times still return. And this is such a crucial point. It's not about complete eradication. It's not about never feeling anxious again. But her approach to its return was radically different. The source says she did not fight the feeling. She accepts it. Wow. That is an enormous conceptual and emotional shift, isn't it? Instead of resisting it, pushing it away, battling against it, she engages with it directly, yet gently.
hmm And when we connect this to broader psychological principles, acceptance in this context, it doesn't mean resignation. It doesn't mean passively surrendering to the feeling. Instead, it signifies acknowledging what is present right here, right now, in the moment, without judgment, and without that futile energy expenditure of fighting against it. It's about recognizing the reality of an emotion, okay, anxiety is here right now, without necessarily endorsing it or allowing it to dictate your actions. When we actively fight or resist an emotion like anxiety, we often inadvertently amplify it. We create the secondary layer of suffering anxiety, but being anxious on top of the initial feeling. This non-resistance, this allowing the feeling to simply be there, often paradoxically reduces the intensity and the power of the emotion itself. It's a fundamental principle in many therapeutic approaches, like acceptance and commitment therapy or ACT.
She even gives anxiety this kind of reframe, right? Gives it a new voice, a new role in her inner world. She says, "Hello, anxiety, I see you. You are not my enemy. You are my signal. I will not run. I will take care of myself." That's a truly powerful reframe, moving from viewing anxiety as this adversary, this enemy, to be defeated, to seeing it as an internal messenger, maybe even just a signal light on the dashboard. And this approach is profoundly intertwined with cultivating self-love, self-compassion. The source states, Sophie has learned self-love. She knows she's not perfect. That's huge. She knows it's okay to feel weak sometimes, but she also knows that she is strong. This isn't about striving for perfect calmness all the time, but about embracing the full spectrum of her human experience with compassion.
Exactly. Viewing anxiety as a signal rather than an enemy is genuinely transformative. It changes the whole internal dialogue. Instead of that panicked thought, why is this happening to me? How do I get stuck right now? Or it prompts a more curious inquiry, like, okay, what might this signal be trying to tell me about my current needs or my environment or my state of being right now? This reframing empowers individuals to respond with care, with curiosity, with investigation, rather than just fear and avoidance. It's a profound mental pivot from feeling like a victim to reclaiming agency. And self-love, in this context, it's that courageous recognition of one's inherent worth and value, irrespective of internal emotional states or perceived weaknesses. It fosters resilience by allowing for self-compassion. It enables her to acknowledge her struggles without being defined by them, and still believe in her capacity to navigate them. It's the ultimate internal validation, really, acknowledging the struggle while affirming one's own strength.
Okay, next, Sophie delved into the practice of mindfulness. Primarily, the source says, through reading and absorbing knowledge from books about the mind. Self-education. She learned that mindfulness, in its essence, means living in the present. It means not thinking too much about the past. It means not worrying too much about the future. Simple, but not easy. And what's so compelling is how she applied this concept not just in formal meditation, maybe sitting on a cushion, but in the most everyday accessible ways. The narrative details things like, she eats her food slowly, really tasting it. She looks at the sky, just noticing. She listens to the sound of the rain, tuning in. She lives every moment. And the outcome, and she feels less anxious. For listeners who might find traditional seated meditation a bit daunting, how does this everyday mindfulness offer a more accessible entry point? It's really about truly experiencing life as it happens, isn't it? Not letting your mind constantly drift off into worries or regrets.
Yeah, what's really compelling here is how these seemingly simple, mundane acts become profound mindful practices. Mindfulness isn't really about emptying your mind entirely. That's a common misconception, and frankly impossible for most people. Nor is it necessarily about achieving some constant state of blissful calm. Rather, it's about training attention, gently, persistently bringing the mind back to the present moment whenever it inevitably wanders off, which it will. So, by grounding herself in concrete sensory experience, the taste and texture of her food, the vastness of the sky, the rhythmic sound of rain, Sophie actively pulls her mind away from those hypothetical future threats or lingering past regrets. This conscious engagement with the here and now, using these sensory anchors, it reduces the mental space available for anxious rumination. It kind of starves the anxiety response of the fuel it needs, those what-if thoughts or replays of the past, and that fosters a greater sense of calm, presence, and stability. This form of informal mindfulness provides an incredibly accessible entry point because it integrates directly into daily life. It demonstrates that you don't need to set aside an hour on a cushion to cultivate presence. You can do it while washing dishes or walking or eating. It's about cultivating awareness in those everyday mundane moments.
And finally, a deeply impactful cornerstone of her renewed perspective was the cultivation of gratitude. Sophie adopted this simple yet profoundly powerful nightly practice. The source says, every night before sleeping, she writes 3 things she is thankful for. Just 3 things. And the examples from her journal that the source shares are wonderfully relatable in their simplicity, yet so profound in their potential impact. Things like, I am thankful for my warm bed, and I am thankful for my smile. These aren't grand gestures or, epic achievements she's listing. They are small, everyday blessings.
hmm And this raises an important question about cognitive reframing and its tangible neurological impact. It's not just thinking nice thoughts. Gratitude isn't merely a pleasant emotion, it's an intentional practice that actively shifts your focus. It moves your attention away from perceived lacks or threats or deficiencies towards existing abundance and positive experiences, however small they might seem. Our brains, by evolutionary design, possess what's called a negativity bias, meaning they're kind of wired to scan for threats and often inadvertently focus on what's wrong or what could go wrong. It helped keep our ancestors alive. But by consciously practicing gratitude, Sophie is actively, deliberately rewiring her neural pathways. She is literally training her brain to identify, acknowledge, and appreciate the positive aspects of her life, even the tiny ones. This creates a counterbalance to the brain's natural inclination towards negativity and threat detection.
And the transformative effect of this simple practice is crystal clear in the narrative. It says, gratitude helps her see the good things in life. It changes her mind from fear to love. Wow! It really highlights that from those disciplined physical habits all the way to these profound mental and emotional shifts, Sophie meticulously built this comprehensive interlocking toolkit, piece by piece, a toolkit to not just survive her anxiety, but to truly navigate it and maybe even flourish with it.
Exactly. This consistent cultivation of positive emotions through gratitude, it can have a measurable impact. It's not just fluffy stuff. Research in positive psychology clearly shows that it can literally increase feelings of well-being, reduce symptoms of depression and anxiety, and foster a more resilient and optimistic outlook over time. It's a deliberate act of choosing perspective, which is immensely empowering when you're dealing with something as pervasive and often overwhelming as anxiety can feel. It solidifies the idea that our internal landscape isn't this fixed, immutable reality that we're stuck with, but rather it's something we can actively shape and influence through consistent practice. It gives agency back to the individual. It demonstrates that even when circumstances are challenging, our internal state is something we actually have considerable influence over.
So, after diligently implementing these multifaceted practices day after day, week after week, Sophie experienced this profound and enduring transformation. The source tells us, after many days and many nights, Sophie feels different. And here's the key part. She still has anxiety, but she is not afraid of it. She knows how to live with it. She knows how to deal with it. This is such a critical distinction, isn't it? This isn't about eradicating anxiety entirely, as if it were some disease to be cured and eliminated forever. It's about fundamentally altering her relationship with it, reclaiming her power, defining her identity beyond the confines of her anxious feelings.
Precisely. That's the heart of it. What's truly fascinating and ultimately liberating here is that shift. The shift from fighting anxiety, which is often a battle that feels unwinnable and frankly exhausting, to consciously coexisting with it, learning to live alongside it. This paradigm shift, moving from viewing anxiety as this external enemy that must be vanquished, to seeing it as an internal signal that can be understood, listened to, and responded to with care, that is absolutely key to sustainable well-being. It moves beyond just trying to find a temporary fix to a fundamental recalibration of her entire relationship with her own emotions. It's about developing self-efficacy and agency, learning that even in the face of difficult emotions, she possesses the tools and the capacity to navigate them. She's no longer passively waiting for anxiety to magically disappear before she feels she can live her life. She's actively learning to live with it, but crucially on her own terms, integrated into her authentic self.
Her final outlook after this really transformative journey is described as one of profound peace, quiet strength, and genuine hope. She is calm, she is happy, she is hopeful. And through all these practices, all this work, she arrives at this powerful, self-affirming realization, a declaration of her core identity. She says, I am not my anxiety. I am more than that. I am strong. I am alive. That truly feels like the ultimate triumph, doesn't it? The recognition that while anxiety might be a part of her human experience, it does not and will never define her essence. It doesn't define her potential or her capacity for a full, fulfilling life.
Yes, that powerful affirmation, it's the culmination of her entire journey. It represents the profound reintegration of self. By consistently engaging with these deliberate practices, the deep breathing, the journaling, reaching out for connection, immersing in nature, prioritizing physical self-care, embracing acceptance, practicing mindfulness, cultivating gratitude, Sophie has not only effectively managed her anxiety symptoms, but she has also cultivated a much deeper understanding and appreciation of herself as a whole person. Flaws, strengths, everything. This profound self-discovery allows her to disentangle her identity from her anxious feelings. It affirms her inherent strength, her resilience, and her remarkable capacity for a full, vibrant, and meaningful life, regardless of what emotions might arise on any given day. This ultimate insight, I think, is what truly underpins her lasting peace. And it serves as such a powerful testament to human potential, to our capacity for growth and healing.
So as we bring this deep dive into Sophie's journey to a close, let's just quickly recap some of the most impactful, accessible, and transformative strategies she so diligently employed. There was deep, conscious breathing, the cathartic and insightful practice of journaling, the vital act of talking openly to someone trusted, finding solace and grounding in nature, comprehensive physical self-care, remember sleep, nutrition, movement, cultivating acceptance of difficult emotions, not fighting them, practicing everyday mindfulness moment by moment, and consistently embracing gratitude, even for the small things. And remember, while this narrative centered on Sophie, her story really is a universal one in many ways. It's about you, it's about me, it's about everyone who has ever experienced the challenging presence of anxiety in their lives.
Indeed. As Sophie's journey so vividly illustrates, you're absolutely not alone in these experiences. So many people feel this way. You possess an incredible inner strength, maybe much more than you realize right now. And it is entirely possible to live a happy, fulfilling life, even with anxiety present. It doesn't have to rule everything. The path forward is often built on consistent, compassionate practice and an unwavering belief in your own unique journey towards peace. One intentional step at a time.
So considering Sophie's inspiring journey and reflecting on all the tools she gathered and so courageously put into practice, what small, intentional step could you, our listener, take today, maybe even right after listening to this? A small step to acknowledge and nurture your own inner landscape, regardless of whether anxiety feels acutely present for you right now or not. Just think about the potential ripple effect of that single mindful action. We sincerely hope this deep dive has provided you with some valuable insights, maybe some practical inspiration, and perhaps a renewed sense of hope for your own path towards inner peace.